Welcome! Today we'll be talking a little bit about teaching grammar in context with EntreCulturas. Our objectives for our short time together are to have you be able to explain what teaching grammar in context is and why it's beneficial for the learners in your classes. To identify where to find the grammar sections in the units throughout EntreCulturas, and to use those resources to teach grammar in a different way, inductively, using the discovery process. Let's look at two approaches to teaching grammar, one traditional and one not so traditional. The first one is the deductive or explicit way of teaching. This is what most teachers and students are used to. The teacher tells the class the name of the language structure they'll be studying, goes over the rules, and then the first activities are rote type of practice, having students fill in verb boxes, conjugate isolated verbs with the subject, or filling in the blanks of a sentence, for example. Let's contrast this with the inductive approach. This is where you allow students to see examples of the language in use, preferably in authentic resources and/or contexts, and then after they've been exposed to it and understand its meaning, we guide them to think about how and why that structure is used, to see or figure out the patterns, to begin to make sense of it. We co-construct the grammar rules with the students, as opposed to them being passive receivers of the knowledge. Then, once they have that knowledge, they use the structures to communicate in performance-based tasks, not rote drills. ACTFL agrees that an inductive method of teaching grammar, where students are the ones exploring, discovering, and using the grammar concepts, leads to a greater understanding of those concepts, which in turn leads to increased communication. ACTFL thinks it's so important that they have included it as one of their 6 practices that all language teachers should be doing and providing for their students. Now that you know a little more about what it is and why it's important, you may be wondering how to teach grammar inductively. There are many different models for teaching grammar inductively, and today I want to go over the basic steps that many of those models include and walk you through a sample lesson showing how to teach grammar in context. The approach we use is called the discovery approach. The first step in the discovery approach is to present an example of the language being used in some sort of text, such as a dialogue or a diary entry. You want them to see or hear how it's used naturally. At this point, the activities are focused on students understanding the meaning of the text, not the grammar. Step 2 is going to be highlighting that grammar by bringing students' attention to it. We have it bolded in our textbooks so that the students do notice it. Next, you co-construct with the students the rules. Start to do this by asking them some guiding questions to help them make predictions about the grammar rule or structure, and then you work with the students to co-construct the rules. In the next step, you allow students to test their hypotheses by giving them some more input with the structure. They will rework anything they need to, and you will help them confirm the rules. And finally, students will move from the receptive mode to the productive mode and start communicating with the target structure. Let's walk through a sample lesson using this model. The grammar sections in EntreCulturas are called Observa because our students are observing the language in context to be able to use it to communicate. Our sample lesson is from EntreCulturas Level 1, Unit 5, and is Observa 3. Note that in Level 1, there are 3 Observa sections per unit. In Levels 2 and 3, there can be anywhere from 2 to 5 Observa sections. And in Level 4, there are 1 or 2 per unit. The first step of the discovery approach is for students to process the text for meaning. In this case, the text is a diary entry about what Erika did over the weekend. This step is really just using this text as an interpretive activity. You aren't pointing out or talking about grammar at all here. You just want students to read and get the gist of this text. You could read it aloud to them. You could have them read it silently, aloud with a partner. Really, however you want to do it, you can have them read the text. Ask a few comprehension questions to make sure they've understood what Erika was writing about here as well. Next, you're going to start to talk about grammar. You're going to point out the structures that are in bold-faced in the text. I've highlighted them in orange here for you so that it's easier to see. As you can see here, our target structure is the yo form of the preterite verbs. We are only focusing on the yo forms in this lesson. The rest of the preterite verb endings will be looked at in level 2. In this lesson, students will be exposed to the to form, but just for recognition. They do not have to create the to form at all for the tasks they'll be asked to do. In addition to pointing out the bolded words, I may ask them to use a T-chart to identify the bolded words and then guess what the infinitive forms of those verbs are, for example. Now, it's time for the students to make some predictions about how and why these structures are being used. Each Observa has a corresponding que observas, which is where you'll find the guiding questions that will help your students to start to process the target language structure. Students can think about these guiding questions in a think, pair, share format using this graphic organizer. First, they think about the questions on their own, and then they compare the ideas with a partner. Finally, as a class, you can co-construct the rules. Now that they have an idea about how and why the target structure is used, they need to confirm their hypothesis. For most Observas, we have a corresponding video called Observa. In these videos, students will see a conversation between two students as a teacher walks them through the version of the discovery process. Let's watch a short clip of this video.
Hola! In this video, you will observe how to talk about completed past actions. Let's watch Isaac and Petra talk about their weekend. Access your EntreCulturas 1 Explorer for the PDF that accompanies this video. ¿Qué hiciste el fin de semana, Isaac?
El sábado visité el museo.
Interesante. Yo trabajé el sábado.
Qué pena, pues después de visitar el museo, hablé con mi primo en la República Dominicana. ¿Y tú qué más hiciste?
El domingo monté en bicicleta con mi hermana.
Chévere. ¿Y en la tarde?
Comí con la familia en casa y bebí un agua fresca de sandía riquísima. Let's take another look at how Isaac and Petra told what they did on the weekend. Which parts of these phrases indicate an activity completed in the past? Bien. Visité. Hablé.
There are activity sheets that accompany the videos in the learning site that students can do online or that can be printed out. In some cases, especially in EntreCulturas 2, there may not be a video for this step. In this case, you can use other resources from the unit or teacher-created input to have the students test their hypotheses. The final step is to have students begin to communicate using the structure. You'll notice the activities always move from the receptive to the productive mode, or from providing students with more input of the structures being used to having the students create output. You can see here that the first activity to practice the yo form preterite verb follows that idea. It's not a rote drill for them to practice without any meaning attached to the structures. Here, students are seeing the verb forms being used in context, providing that needed input for the students. In this activity, students read about things someone would say they did during a certain celebration, and then they have to decide which celebration it was. Now in the next activity, Actividad 31, they will begin to create with the structure. Notice that the activity is broken down into steps, paso uno and paso dos. In step 1, the students are given a list of questions. They will choose 3 that they want to ask their classmates to find out more about. Once they have their questions picked out, they will move into the interpersonal speaking mode and have a conversation asking if their classmates did those activities or not. There is a model provided for support. Also, notice the grammar note in the sidebar as additional support if the students need it. Continuing on to Actividad 32, students will do some writing practice by jotting down at least 5 things they did at their last birthday and how it was. There is additional vocabulary provided to help students extend their thoughts and be able to communicate if they thought the activity, for example, was cool or nothing special, or if they liked it or not. The final activity of this lesson has them writing a diary entry, just like Erika's example at the beginning of this lesson. Notice the can-do statement in the sidebar that students should be able to self-evaluate on at the end of this lesson. If you find that your students need a little extra help in practice, we have additional online activities that you can assign to the entire class or just to those who need the extra practice. These are called extensión activities. Essentially, it's like extra workbook practice, but online. So nobody has to lug the workbooks around, and the computer will automatically grade and give feedback on all the objective type activities as soon as they are submitted by the students. There is also additional videos that have a more direct grammar explanation for students who need the extra support for some of those Observa sections. These videos are called Enfoque en la Forma and can be found in the Recursos folder in the Learning site. That is a short tutorial on how to teach grammar inductively while using EntreCulturas. If you have further questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us at info@waysidepublishing.com, and we'll make sure to provide the extra support you need. Thank you.